off, if I understand correctly, the video option. Is that correct? Because I can't find it.
Yeah, there's no video.
Okay. All right. So thank you, everybody. As we know, today's topic is here. We're right in the middle, June 15th, managing counter compliant usage data. So we're going to be discussing counter in SUSHI, managing it in Alma, using Alma Analytics to get insight from the data. But before we do anything, I want to make sure we're all on the same page regarding what is counter data, what is SUSHI, and let's go take a look at that. For that, we have a presentation here, and I'll send the link to everybody. Oh, it's right here. So I'm going to send the link so everyone will have it, and hold on a minute. And we'll go through it together now. So here, what is counter? What is SUSHI? How to create and test a counter release 5 SUSHI account, and how to schedule and monitor the SUSHI accounts. I'm not going to use these second two PowerPoints. Ray is making sure they're all posted somewhere where everyone can look at them. I'm only going to look very briefly at this, what is counter and what is SUSHI, and I'll send out this link to everybody so they've got it. And let's just make sure we're all on the same page for what is counter and what is SUSHI. So counter, it's not a kitchen counter, and it's not a lap counter. What is counter? Counter is an acronym for counting online usage of networked electronic resources. And in plain language, it's a report, a structured, organized report provided by a vendor to an institution showing usage of the resources that the institution has purchased from the vendor. Every vendor who supports counter, and that's most, if not all, of the major vendors, can supply a counter report which includes the usage such as how many times was a title clicked, how many times was it downloaded to PDF, how many times was it viewed. Some of them will say how many times did someone want to view it and he couldn't because the license was exceeded, etc. There's all kinds of predefined measures, and everything is explained in this link of Project Counter. It's not an invention of Ex Libris, although we do have, it happens to be me, a representative at NISO in the Counter organization, and we do have some influence on it, but it's not an Ex Libris invention. It's a standard out there by NISO and the standards, and if anyone wants to see more specific details on it, they can come here and read. I will point out also that there's release 4 of Counter and release 5 of Counter, and we support them both. Our focus now for the past year and a half or so was on release 5. There's really no developments necessary for release 4 because it's kind of on its way out. Vendors that don't yet support release 5 do have plans eventually to, but they're both supported meanwhile. So that's counter. Then there's SUSHI. So what is SUSHI? It's not the Japanese sushi. It's not the salmon sushi. It's the Standardized Usage Statistics Harvesting Initiative. And if we want to say it in plain words, it's the ability for an institution to set up a process that automatically goes to the site of the vendor, gets the file, pulls it in, and uploads it to Alma. Harvesting. Harvesting is a popular term. There's also in Primo this harvesting where it goes and can get data not only from Alma but from other places and all load it to one place. So that's counter in SUSHI. If you want to read more about SUSHI, that too is not an invention of Ex Libris. It's a standard out there by NISO, and you can go and read all about it. So before we go on to how do we handle counter via SUSHI. I'm just going to see if there's any questions or comments. I don't see anything in the chat. So if there are no questions or, oops, someone did, no, that was us who said something. Okay, so no one has put in a question or a comment, and therefore I will assume that we can go on. So in order to be able to use this SUSHI, in order to be able to harvest, or in plain terms, in order to be able to tell Alma, go to vendor X every month or every week and go look and see if there are new counter files, and if so, take them and load them, we need to set up a SUSHI account. And a SUSHI account is associated with an Alma vendor. So let's see. If I come in Alma, where's my Alma? Here, and I'm in my Alma University. It's a regular standard version. It's just called Alma University because it's my demo environment, but I'm not in any special development environment that has things that you don't have. You can see them in the standard June 2021 release. And if we come to acquisitions and we come to vendors, we'll see that if a vendor includes a SUSHI account, she will be listed as a SUSHI vendor. This does not have a SUSHI account associated with it, so it doesn't say SUSHI vendor. And I'm going to add 2 SUSHI accounts now and show how they can be tested to make sure they work, and then show how they can be checked to see what they've harvested. Then we're going to go into analytics and look at the actual data. So the first one I want to do is for Proquest. So I'm going to find a vendor. So there's 3 vendors with the word Proquest in it. And I'm going to be doing, everything I'm going to be doing today is for counter release 5. There's really no need at this stage to start showing counter release 4. It's kind of on its way out, and it's very similar as far as setting that up. So I'm going to come into this last one here. It has vendor code Rialto and name Proquest LLC, and come into edit. And the SUSHI accounts are located in the usage data folder, or let tab. So I'm going to this tab here, and I'm going to add the SUSHI account. So if I click add SUSHI account, now I can choose which release do I want. And depending on which release I choose, the screen will look a little different. So I'm going to choose release 5, because Proquest is using release 5 already. I don't need to remember by heart the vendor URL. I can come in here and search the community zone. For example, I can click here, select from list, and start searching. I'll search for Proquest. That's one option. Or, I'm going to close this, I can start typing it, and it goes and it looks for a match in the community zone. It finds one, I choose it, and it fills in the vendor URL. And I can also put in an override URL if there is a case, and there have been cases where for whatever reason, the institution has a slightly different URL than the one we have, or uses a slightly different URL than the one in the community zone, then the institution can put in that one here. For example, I'm putting in one here which slightly differs from the one in the vendor URL. Mine has .pre after the SUSHI. And all of these are different depending on the vendor. All of the other different parts, if I come into Google and I search for Alma counter SUSHI vendors, and I don't even need to spell it properly, as you say, he automatically knows. So we've got managing counter compliant usage data, we've got SUSHI vendor lists, and in here we've got a list of all of the vendors that we support. And in many cases, there are special instructions because every vendor's got their own story. And we're going to see in a moment, because I'm going to set up 2 of them, that they slightly differ from each other. in the method. So I'm going to fill out this first one for Proquest now. It's going to go first and look, by the way, for the override URL. And if it doesn't find, and if that one doesn't work, then it uses the regular vendor URL. So I'm going to fill mine in. I'm going to give a customer ID. Now note here, I'm using a customer ID and not a requester ID, because in the next one I'm going to do, I will have a requester ID. So each one is different, and that's why we've got this list here. Anytime we discovered something out of the ordinary, we put it here in the special instructions. So let's come here back. There we are. Okay, so I'll fill in the customer ID for this. And I'm also going to change these values are going to change after the meeting. So not that we think anyone would write it down and go check our SUSHI account. But all of these will change anyway. So I've got a username. Here I've also got an API key. In the next one I'm going to do, there is no API key. Okay, so I filled in here customer ID, username, and API key, and every institution will get that information from the vendor. And if I click now test connection, hold on, what is that? Connection failed. Whoa, okay. So let's see, let me save this first of all. Oh, right. I've already got one called Proquest, so I'm going to call this Proquest 1. And I know some questions have come in. Let me fill in both SUSHI accounts, then we'll take the questions because it might be that it gets answered during that. So we're saving this. Great. Now I'm going to edit it, and we're going to test connection, because before we actually start running the SUSHI harvesting job, we want to make sure that this works. So if I click test connection, connection failed. Let's see what I did wrong here. I've got the URL. I've got the customer ID 193940, username, API key, and save. Let's make sure I put this in correct. We've got HTTPS. The override URL is not a valid URL. Oh, thanks a lot. So I've got sushi.pre.proquest. Ooh, thank you so much, person who answered that. I forgot my .com. Test connection. There we go. It's always a human error or not an Alma error. So I have my browser is set up that if it goes and gets a file, it asks me if I want to open it or save it. And I happen to have here on the top right, you can see JSON Lite. I got an add-on on my browser so I can view a JSON file. All communication with vendors for Counter Release 5 is via JSON files. You don't even have to know that, but behind the scenes, that's what's happening. So if I open up this JSON file, here it is. Let's look at the raw data. This is a JSON file, and this is how it looks when it's structured. So it says the service is active, true. Gives a description, counter usage reports for Proquest platform, and it includes a link to that vendor at Project Counter, so any further information can be obtained here. The person to contact, which release 5 it supports, which release 4 it supports, etc. So I have successfully connected to the vendor. However, I still need to do more with this vendor. I need, for example, to go to add report type and add the report types that I want to harvest from this vendor. And if I come here, for example, I see that for release 5, he supports PRP1. So I'm going to say here, I'm going to add PRP1. So now I've added a PRP1. I'm going to come back here for a moment. What else has he got here? If I go here, DRD2 also supports. So if I come back here and I say I want DRD2, there she is, and add and close. So now I've added 2 different reports. I can also go check if I can go to the vendor now, get that report, and bring it to my environment. So here I'm going to test connection with response. Above, when we did test connection, it just went out and made sure we have communication with the vendor. Now I'm checking, are the reports that I've added to this sushi account below, are those valid reports that I can go to the vendor now and retrieve them? And that's what it's doing now. Here we've got the response. Let's take a look at that. And here we go. So here's the PRP1 report. This is a platform usage report for April. 4 is April, January, February, March, April. Yep. And then it's got the measures, unique title requests, unique item requests. I'm not going to go into what are all these measures, but I'm seeing here that I'm successfully connecting to this vendor and bringing a report. So that's example 1. Now let's go look at example 2, and then we'll go look at the questions. So this one's saved. Now I'll go get another vendor. Now, it's possible actually for me to add another sushi account for a completely different vendor on this same vendor. I can come along here. Let me save this. And again, say add sushi account, release 5, and say I want this one to be called, hold on, John Benjamin's. Hold on, John Benjamin's. John Benjamin's. And again, it brings me the information. I'm doing it on purpose in the same vendor because there was a question related somewhat to this. And then it gave me the vendor URL. I'm not going to use here an override URL. We already saw how that works. Here I'll fill in the requester ID. In the previous case, I didn't fill in a requester ID. I only filled in a customer ID. Here I'm filling in a requester ID and a customer ID because for this vendor, both of them are necessary. Also for this one, the platform is necessary. And there's an explanation here in the pop-up text of when and why a platform might be needed. This is a fairly recent development because only throughout the process did we discover that the release 5 in some cases needed a platform. By the way, we developed this counter release 5, and I know there was a lot of pressure from the community. When are we going to develop? When are we going to develop? We could only develop this as fast as the vendors were ready to give us examples. So we weren't late on it, and it's still, in a sense, being developed by both sides because, for example, we added this platform when the counter release 5 vendors said, okay, we're going to have another field there called platform. In any case, so this one has platform and requester ID. The other one did not. And I'm going to save this one. The vendor sushi account is already in use. Okay, so I'll call it John Benjamin's 1. So now, even though I'm in a vendor which is called as vendor code Rialto and vendor name Proquest, I can put in any kind of sushi account. And on this John Benjamin's, I will also test the connection and make sure it's good. Open that up and everything's good. It gives the explanation. And again, we've got a link directly to the vendor. Here it is. And with the information of what he supports, PRP1 and a bunch of TRs. So again, for this vendor, I'm going to add a report type. I'll add that PRP1. And I'll also add one of those TRs because we saw that he also supports TR. Let's just see exactly which ones. TRB1, TRB2, TRB3 as examples, and TRB1. Add and close. So now I've added 2 report types. And again, for this, we can test connection with response now on the level of the reports, not on the level of the whole vendor. And here we go. It's a PRP1 report. And it's got for what dates. And then it's got the measures. So I defined 2 sushi accounts. And in this case, I defined them, where am I? Here. And in my case, I define them in the same vendor. I could have come to any other vendor And going into that vendor, let's take Gale. I could have come into this vendor and come along, or if I have a vendor called John Benjamin's, I could have come to usage data and added it here as well. Okay, I'm going to see the questions. I don't want to spend too long because we still have a lot to do. What are the best practices? Wait, can you refine the dates of the report you receive? Someone asks. No, you can't refine the dates of the report you receive. When a SUSHI request goes to the vendor, it looks for any reports in the last 12 months that have not yet been harvested, and it brings them to Alma. You can't say, I want April and I don't want May. It's always going to look for the last 12 months and always take only those which have not already been harvested. And if they have been harvested, there will be a message that there's overlapping data. How do we deal? Someone says, how do we deal with cases where a single vendor needs to be associated with more than one platform? So I think I answered that here when I took this one vendor, which I called Proquest, and I put with it John Benjamin's and Proquest. So someone wrote, as far as I can tell, it's only possible to associate a single SUSHI per vendor. No, it's not possible. It's not only possible to associate a single SUSHI account per vendor. And we saw that. I see this was sent in from the time, unless I'm seeing the time wrong, after I did this, so maybe I didn't explain it properly. This is one vendor called Proquest, and he has SUSHI accounts for two different SUSHI account vendors. I'm going to do one more question, and then we're going to go on. Let me scroll up. What are the best practices for troubleshooting connection failures when all the required details are entered correctly? Okay, the first thing to do is to go to our list here and see if in the special instructions is something you're missing. And if there's not something you're missing, then it's contact the vendor and ask them why it's not connecting. Also, you'll see soon that when it fails, let's say if it has connection but doesn't SUSHI harvest, we're going to see there are specific error messages. But if you can't even do the test connection, if the part here, let me go back into one, if the part here where you edit and do test connection isn't working, then you need to contact the vendor and say, hey, I'm using requester ID whatever, I'm using customer ID whatever, how come it's not connecting? Okay, let's go on and now see, now that we have the SUSHI accounts, how do we get the SUSHI to work? So I'm going to come to the Alma configuration menu on the bottom left. And under acquisitions and acquisitions jobs configuration, there's one of the jobs, which is SUSHI harvesting job. And here I can say, when do I want this job to run? And here it's defined every Saturday. There's really no need for this job to run more than once a month because a vendor is not putting data on his site to be harvested more than once a month. If he's doing it once a month, that's good. It's not that he'll do for the first 2 weeks of February and then the second 2 weeks of February and every time put a file. It's going to be a whole file of at least a month. And sometimes in January, it'll be the whole year of the previous year. So there's really no need to do this more than 1 month, but it is possible. Someone asked if the SUSHI harvesting takes into account reports that are manually uploaded. Yes, it does. When it looks for overlapping data, it just looks for data in the counter tables. It doesn't look to see how it was loaded. Okay, so this is the job that is scheduled, and a user can see this job if he or she comes to the regular Alma menu and goes to admin, like I'm going to do right now, and then to monitor jobs, and then in the history tab, he can filter. For example, I'll take the last month, last 30 days, and under job name, I'll put in the word sushi, even sush. Okay, so everything that includes sush now appears here. And let's say, why are these completed with errors? Let's see what that means, completed with errors. I'm going to the report. So it says there were 65 records processed. Okay, so what happened here? It went to vendor sushi account SPIE. It looked for report type TRB3, and it failed, but it really didn't fail. It failed for a good reason. There was no usage data available. It went to EBSCO, and it completed for both PRP1 release 5 and TRB3. But for these report types, there was no file. But here it completed. Here, service did not find any data for the date. Here, the person who asked, what's the troubleshooting? You can tell the vendor that there was no response. This is the URL that was sent. The URL was sent from using all of the details which were in the SUSHI account. For example, it gets the API key, the platform, and then the dates. And then it tries to harvest. It tried to do that, and there was no response. It got a 401. 401 means there's no response. So the institution could say to the vendor, hey, look, I sent it. We can't get it done because this gives us an error message. And by the way, you can also test this locally simply by sticking it in here. And it's not working. As we know, it's not working here either. So this is looking all over on a large level at the entire sushi. However, it's also possible, I think there's an example here of Harvard. It's also possible, where's my control F? Okay. It's also possible to do it on the level of a specific vendor. For example, if I come to vendors here and I look for a vendor with the word Harvard, I believe Harvard, oh, there it is, Harvard University Press. Instead of looking like we did now at the job, and then the job showing us everything that was attempted to be sushi harvested, I can go to one specific account, and on the bottom of that screen that we saw a moment ago, when we define the sushi account, we can see all of the files which have been successfully uploaded and also the ones which have not been successfully uploaded. So here I am switching to the usage data tab of the vendor details, and we'll scroll down here. So I see that 34 files have been uploaded for this vendor for Harvard University Press, and I can start filtering them by all different things. And I can see just for Harvard University Press what was uploaded and when. And I can also download one of the counter reports. Let's in fact download one of these reports. Okay, so I downloaded Sushi Harvard University Press, blah, 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 blah. Let's show that in the folder. Let's double click it. And here it is. So this is a DR, a Database Master Report from Harvard University Press. And it's got the name of the platform, the Lieb Classical Library for Database Greek Library. And I can see that during the time, there was a total of 645 total item requests. So here I'm looking at the specific level of the counter report itself. of the specific sushi account. I'm not looking at the job. Then another way is here under acquisitions, under acquisitions, we have import and load usage data. And if we go to load usage data, we'll have all of the reports which were attempted to be uploaded and either were successful or were failed. And that's for every possible sushi account for the entire history of Alma. And then it can also be changed according to upload date, file type, who uploaded it, etc. For example, here I can say the uploading user, because the uploading user is either the sushi scheduler, or if a file is uploaded manually, which we won't be doing today, it will have the username of the user who uploaded it. Then we've got all the different types. And here too, we can download the specific counter report if we want and take a look at it. I'm going to show in folder and then I'll just open any one here because that one I got still looks like it's still downloading the other one. So I'll open this one. Is that the same one? Yeah, now I'm in journal requests. Okay, so here, back to here. So here we've got everything that's been downloaded. Excuse me, everything that's been uploaded, either manually or via SUSHI, and it might even be ones which were failed or no usage available or partially processed. So it can be filtered here various ways. It can also be by subscriber, by upload date, by report type, by vendor, etc. So I don't want to go too much into detail here because the main point is in the end to use analytics to get some kind of insight into the usage of the resources. Here, it's more of an academic exercise to see, how do I set up an account? How do I make sure they're getting loaded? How do I schedule it to be monthly instead of weekly or every Monday instead of every Sunday, etc. Then there's a option here, a tab with monthly usage data, which can tell the institution if maybe they're missing something. For example, this is filtered by year 2021, and it shows each of the platforms along with the measure, and it says that for January, February, March, April, May, these have all been loaded. For June on, they have not yet been loaded yet, because obviously there's no data yet for June onward because we're still in the middle of June. And if I scroll down here, I'll probably have a case where something is missing. Let's take a look. And the institution would then be able to say, hey, I'm missing February or whatever. Here's a good case. So for the AMA Manual of Style, we see that for PR and PRP1, usage has been loaded for January, March, April, and May. It's missing February. So the institution can contact the vendor and say, how come there's no data for February? Did you forget to put the report there or what's going on? And it's an easy way to identify which months are missing. We can also do this via analytics. We're going to look at that shortly because in analytics, if we have a report like this, well, then you can make it a scheduled report or you can make it accessible from within Alma. There's all different kinds of things you can do. Where here, when it's in Alma itself, I can't, now go send this to someone. I'd have to export it to Excel, which I could do here and then make an attachment. But if it's in analytics, I can automatically get it going. Okay, I know there's a ton of questions which came in, and we got 25 minutes left. We haven't even gotten to the analytics part, but let me just take a look here. Let me go to the end. What JSON extension do you use, and can you open the JSON files in Excel? I don't know how to open a JSON file in Excel. It might be possible. It's probably a tool out there that does it. I installed something here called JSON Lite in my Firefox. There's a million of them out there. And that's how I open them. So I can look at them normally the way I'm doing it now. I don't know how to open one in Excel. There probably is a way to convert it. If the missing reports are made available by the vendor, will they be uploaded the next time the sushi harvesting runs? Yes, they will, because every time the sushi harvesting runs, it looks for reports in the last 12 months. So if the vendor puts them there and you haven't yet uploaded them, then if they're in the last 12 months, then they will be loaded. If they're older than 12 months, the sushi harvesting will not load them. You'll have to tell the vendor to please send them to you or to put them somewhere where you can download it, and then you can manually load them. Hold on, let me keep reading here. They're coming in at a rapid pace. There is a lot of discussion in the Alma listserv right now that all of the Silverchair vendors are currently being ID'd as duplicate data. Is this close to being fixed? I don't have a status on that issue, so I don't want to commit to saying anything. I don't know what the status of the Silverchair vendor issue is. Why do you add the sushi harvesting parameters from another vendor to a vendor's usage data? It seems counterintuitive, pun not intended. Yeah, that is a good pun. The only reason I added the sushi harvesting parameters from another vendor is because someone asked that question. The only reason I added, what was it called, John Benjamin, to the Proquest one is because someone asked if I can add two different platforms to one vendor. That's the only reason, not because it's intuitive, not because it's something I would typically do, simply someone asked. Where do you find a list of what each code report means? For example, TRR5. I would just go to counter, TR, release 5, report type, something like that, and either get it at the project counter one, which is going to be one of the results, project counter, load of practice, and you've got explanations all throughout here. Usage reports overview. Here's one from JSTOR even. So all over the internet, you've got lists of all of the different types of counter reports and what they are. Here's a nice one. So you've got all the different things and what they report on, and they're all over. And we do not replicate this because in our documentation, because it could change tomorrow and then we have to change it. It's best to just always go right to the source. Okay, I'm going to move on because we've got 22 minutes left. Now, let's talk about getting the data visible, getting some insight. Let me close this. This is something else. Okay. So first I want to point out, and I'm going to put this in writing. Okay. The wrong language. The counter, make this larger. The counter data is available in Alma Analytics in two subject areas. It's in the usage data. All of this is in the presentations. I just don't like to bore people with PowerPoints. But those 3 PowerPoints we showed before, everything's in there, even more than what I'm showing. So it's in the usage data subject area, and it's in the e-inventory subject area. What is the difference between the two? The usage data subject area is, or let's say contains, my spelling is just atrocious, contains all counter data from all loaded counter reports, manual or via SUSHI, regardless of whether or not the resource exists in Alma. That's number one. I'm going to expand on this in a moment, but this is an important point. On the other hand, this should be of, the e-inventory subject area contains all counter data, let's say contains counter data from all loaded counter reports only for resources which exist in Alma. What do I mean? And there's a lot of cases like this. People will say, how could that possibly be? I'll explain. If I'm looking here, I'm going to go back to uploaded files. And let's say I've got a TRJ1, something with journals or ebooks. And that counter report includes, I'm just throwing out an example, Introduction to Library Science for Programmers. I always use that example because I like to make sure our programmers know some library science. So it might be that even though the vendor knows that I ordered that resource, and even though the vendor is giving me information, I'm going to download this report here just for the fun. And even though the vendor is giving me that information, let me go here. Hold on one moment. Show in folder. And let's do this. Open. It might be that I don't have it. Take African entomology. It might be that I don't have African entomology, even though I ordered it. It could be that I never, for whatever reason, I never put it in my institution. I never cataloged it. I never copied it from the community zone, whatever. That will be, I do have it though. But if I didn't, it would be in the usage data subject area. It wouldn't be in the e-inventory subject area. And it wouldn't be in the e-inventory subject area for obvious reasons. I don't have inventory. Now let's go take a look. So I'm going to pop into analytics here. And we'll start by looking at the usage data subject area. I'll also point out that another difference is the E inventory subject area includes not only usage, but also cost, and thus the very famous cost per use. So the cost per use is also in the e-inventory subject area, and we'll look at that. Usage data subject area is pure usage data. Okay, let's go now in Alma Analytics. Now, as everybody knows, and if not, we'll refresh their knowledge. The Alma folder includes out-of-the-box default reports from Ex Libris, and it is a read-only folder. So that means I can take all of the out-of-box reports here. If I want to change it, I save them locally. So I'm going to come here to usage. So this is an old one, which we will eventually deprecate, and then we redid it. This is usage from the Alma link resolver, which is a whole nother story. This is usage via counter reports that we had for release 4. And when release 5 came out, we made usage via counter reports for release 5. And there's a series of reports here. And all of these reports are in this dashboard. But let's look first at this monthly usage one. Because in the monthly usage, we have very similar to what we have in acquisitions load usage data. And then you recall I showed a tab of monthly usage data so the institution can see if they're missing anything. And I said we also have it in analytics. So here it is in analytics. Here I'm filtering it by year 2021. Let's let this load. I apologize on the time. We're aware that this acquisitions import load usage data takes a little time. I see there are questions coming up about the cost per use. So let me just point something out. If you go to developers exlibrisgroup.com and you go to blog and you just write cost per use, there are blogs here which explain every specific query which has come up and needed explanation. How is the cost per use calculated when the counter platform field is in? Why might it somehow have decimal points? How is the resource from the counter report matched to the resource in Alma for cost per use? An overview of determining the price. The price doesn't come from the purchase order, doesn't come from the purchase order line. It comes from the transaction from the actual transaction. But I'm not going to get into the whole theories behind it. I'll send out this link here. This will give you everything you wanted to know about cost per use. Okay, so this monthly usage data, back to where we were. This monthly usage data that I'm going to now, this tab within Alma that we looked at a little earlier, is also available. Oops, what just happened there? There we are. Is also available here in analytics. And the advantage we said of having it in analytics is you can use all of the advantages of analytics, such as making a scheduled report and sending this out to people, saving it locally, and then you can hard code it to only a certain year, only a certain measure, only a certain platform, send it out to people. But here I can see also what I've got, what I'm missing. If you recall, the example I used before was the ALA Manual of Style was missing February. Here also we see that it's missing February. So you've got everything you need here. Someone asked, should we delete older usage data in Alma on a regular basis? And someone else said, can I put these where people can read them? So I won't include anyone's name, but I'll put this here so everyone can see the question. Someone asks, should we delete older usage data in Alma on a regular basis? Thanks. And the answer is going to be no. Do not delete it, because you might want to know what the usage was 3 years ago. You might want to make a trend by year in a few years and have a whole trend. So no, there's no need to delete it. In any case, it's not your memory that's being used. It's memory in the cloud that you don't have to worry about it. How many counter reports you've got there. So no, you don't need to delete older usage data. Okay, let's go on. Time is just running out quick. And it doesn't matter how long we make these, we don't have time. But that's good. It means we have so much to cover. Imagine if we were bored. Imagine we didn't have enough to show and I started have to making up things. Wouldn't that be a bad situation? So back to the analytics. I've got too many tabs going here. All right, so that's the monthly usage data. Let's look at the actual usage data. This is showing what has and has not been loaded. But here's the usage via counter reports. Let's take a look at the dashboard. Because everything we did until now was just the infrastructure so that we can get these insights as to what we loaded. So this is showing the trends. It's defaulting here to material type indicator TR, which is the unique title request. I'm going to change this to all of them. All column values. Now, it's really not logical in a sense. It depends what you're looking for. But to say all column values, I mean, I'm looking at license exceeded together with searches. You know, it's not really a clean search, but it is showing usage, overall usage. So let's say apply. And now I've got the trends by month. That's a nice looking trend. Comes down in June, comes down in December, which probably means summer vacation, Christmas vacation, winter vacation. And then I can go to most used titles. And so it's telling me the most used, just strictly looking at the usage, not at the cost or anything. Then it's got one here by platforms. Science Direct, Proquest, Springer Link, etc. Another one here by publisher. And again, I can say, well, I want publisher by not everything, but by TR. TR title item request for books. Ooh, that's going to be interesting. B1. Wiley, Springer International, the big ones. And then usage amounts for all material types for 3 calendar years ago until the current date. This is a interesting one. We originally made this one for the migrations. When people migrated and want to see if their data, if their counter data was migrated, we made this, and then it turned out it was useful also for non-migrating people because it's showing the last 3 years the amounts. And then there's counter report loading, which is showing how many reports have been loaded by year and month, and if they were loaded manually or via SUSHI. That will load in a minute. Someone asks if they can use, let me put it over here. Let me go copy it then. I know it in my head because someone asked it. Someone says, next question, will Alma ever be, let's get rid of that. Will Alma ever be able to deal with non-counter usage? Answer, if you have it in an Excel sheet, then now already today, you can load that file to data visualization and make reports on it. We will not make a way to automatically SUSHI harvest it. If a worldwide NISO protocol will be invented for that data, then we will consider. But if it's just some locally made non-standard, then data visualization has a method to load Excel sheets, and you can load it, make your own subject area out of it, and play around with it. If you have it in an Excel sheet now, okay. Sorry. So here we've got the reports which were loaded by the year and month. We can see, for example, that in August 2019, 3 reports were loaded manually, 142 were loaded via the SUSHI job. And sorry about this is popping up all the time. And here we can see the trends. It looks like the big loads were here in October, November, and December. September, October, November, December, the end of the year. Usually, which I'm not seeing here, usually the big loads around January, February, coming in for the previous year. Okay, we got 6 minutes, so I want to go to the e-inventory subject area, and I apologize if you asked a question and I didn't answer. But I want to make sure, where am I here? I want to make sure we're going to show the other stuff. I'm in Chrome, okay. And it looks like I closed the analytics, so I'll go back in. All right. So now we're going to look at e-inventory subject area. And the e-inventory subject area includes a folder for cost per use. If I say create analysis, first I'm just going to show the subject area, then I'm going to show the default dashboard. If I say create analysis and I go to the e-inventory subject area, then we'll see that there's a folder here called cost usage. And under cost usage, there's a tooltip here explaining about it. And there's also the guide. There's also the blogs that I sent you. And there's one question I do want to answer here. I saw a bunch of them come in. I can't find the exact question, and I don't want to scroll through these million things, but someone asked if we don't use Alma acquisitions, can we use, oh, here it is. Let me paste it in so everyone can read. Someone asks this. If we do not use the acquisitions module, then we won't be able to produce cost per use reports, right? Yes, that is correct. We do have tentative roadmap plans to be able to have just a regular field called price. It'll be called something like price for the purposes of cost per use, and it'll go somewhere on the level of either the electronic portfolio and or the electronic collection, and then you'll be able to use that. But if you're not using Alma acquisitions, then you can't use the cost per use. Unless you do it on your own and you download all your usage data, and then you, wherever you do have your cost information, you mix it on your own. But within a standard Alma Analytics, no, because we don't have the price anywhere. Okay, let's go on. So this is the e-inventory subject area. This is the section with cost usage. And let's go now and look at the default reports that we've got for that. So here we are in the regular Alma folder that we were in before. And here we've got under e-inventory, let me make this a little bigger and this a little bigger. And these a little smaller. Okay, so we looked now at the usage via counter reports. And then we've also got cost per use. Now, we also have usage for physical things, by the way. For physical things, the usage is the loans. So we have cost per use via fulfillment data and acquisitions data, and we're going to look at cost per use via counter reports, e-inventory, and acquisitions data. I know it's a long name, but we wanted to make sure it's clear because usage can be for physical items via loans, can be for electronic via counter reports, and also for electronic via Alma Link Resolver. And we're talking here specifically about usage from the counter report. So let's take a look at this dashboard because, wow, it's 1758. Okay, opening this up. So what do we got here? It's automatically defaulting to the previous fiscal year. And it's showing most used titles. So it's starting just with pure usage. Then we've got by price, most expensive. Just looking at the cost. Later, we're going to see we've also got the actual cost per use. Here we've got the cost of usage and the cost per use. Then we can go to specific title details. I can say, for example, I want titles with nursing in the title and only ones that have cost and have usage. Let me get rid of these. And then I see also the cost per use. The cost per use being the cost divided by the usage. 1.45 divided by 0.99 is 1.47. Or 32.54 divided by 77.96 is 42. So it's 42 cents, or whatever currency this is, even though euros is going to be cents too, or for every usage. Let's go return, because I used the prompt on that. Return is going to bring me right back. Then we've got continuous. Continuous in one time. Continuous being when the purchase order line is of type continuous. Same thing here, the cost, the usage, the cost per use, and then for one time, which is typically ebooks. It's 6 o'clock, the end of the time. I'm going to see if there's any crucial questions in the chat, and then we've all got to go on to new ones, other meetings. Someone says, is there a way to manually enter usage statistics for physical serials? No barcodes, no loan data. No, not without usage data. Someone answered. I'll just stick that out here. Oh, everyone can see that anyway, because I see it was sent to the chat. Thank you, Jenny, for answering that already, but I'll put it here in case someone didn't see. Okay, so thanks everybody for joining us, and we hope to see you in the rest of these Knowledge Day sessions, and in fact, in all of our webinars. Have a nice day.
You should see a survey pop up whenever the session closes. We very much appreciate all of your feedback whenever you leave, and hope to see you at more events. Have a great day, and thank you, Yoel and Jenny, for all of your help.